and welcome to one of my little pseudo-documentaries, but a very special one. So special that I'm not doing any box segments, as I call them, for this video. So yeah, no cardboard this time. Sorry. But anyway, this is going to be the first of two videos that I do on the short-lived VX video format, here in the States generally known as the Great Time Machine. So yeah, I already mentioned that this is going to be one of my little pseudo-documentaries, but the next video that I do for this, next week actually, will be a little more of a traditional archive episode. As it stands, I think it's going to be about half history lesson and half showing off the best and or worst of the material on the stack of tapes that I've accrued in the, I think, 4.5 months now that I've had this as of my shooting this. Granted, as much as I can get away with showing on YouTube. But anyway, as for today, yeah, this one's really going to be meant for the diehards. This is meant for fans of long-form restoration and repair type videos, albeit minus the skill set of a Shango 066 or a radio TV phono nut, guys that actually know what they're doing. So this is really going to be me trying to find my way with this machine, if I can get hippy-dippy with it for a moment here. As in learning the operation, learning the maintenance, learning to deal with the tapes, trying to at least diagnose things that aren't working. And I should note that even now, this is not 100% working. As you will see, the recording end of things is screwed up, unfortunately, including the clock, the Great Time Machine part of all this. But weirdly enough, I'm kind of okay with that because it's the playback end of things that I'm really concerned with, and that seems to be okay. I consider this an archival format, as in recovering old tapes, not doing new recordings, not doing recording experiments. But yeah, on that note, I have done a full battery of tests on this. Anyway, getting back to things that aren't quite there, there's some cosmetic stuff that hasn't happened yet. For one, this thing is actually tilted back at the moment. There's only 2 out of the 4 rubber feet on this thing. I have ordered some hopeful replacements, but they just haven't shown up as of my shooting this. Anyway, getting back to basics here, this is such an obscure and such an oddball format that even though I'm going to repeat a lot of this in the next video, I really think it's going to be best if I give just a basic rundown of this machine and the tapes first. Otherwise, I think almost everyone's going to be lost. I think this needs the context. So before we get to the documentary, let me take a cut here. I'll reset the camera and we'll start going over the features. All right, functionally, this is about on par with most early consumer VCRs, but there are some quirks, and I'll point them out as I go along. So I guess we'll start with the chief one. Normally, you're kind of used to just sticking in a cassette and playing, and it may be a top loader if it's old enough. Well, not only is this a top loader, the inside of the tape, and you'll see it when I get to that part, actually has a core in it that twists out by the machine, and it just wraps the tape already in the cartridge around the head in there, and it just pulls out the core and then you put it back in. So to deal with the core, you have this slider here. So to eject, it's left and down. You pop in your tape, close it, and to get the core out of the cartridge, you slide it all the way to the right, and then you can play, fast forward, rewind, record, whatever it is you happen to want to do. The trick is remembering to get the core back in. So you slide it all the way back, and then you get your tape back. So aside from that, it's not as quirky. The piano keys here function like any, not just VCR, but really any audio tape deck, certainly of the period. So to record, it's You do have a monitor switch, so you can just press that to check your signal going in, but otherwise you press down the play and record buttons at once. The stop here doubles as a pause, so when it is in play mode, with the core removed, you can just hit stop. And it would stay down, of course, if there was a tape in there. So, yeah, we got that. And then down here, we got a switch between black and white and color, pretty common on early VCRs, largely designed for people maybe who are having reception problems, or they're recording black and white programs and they don't want to deal with the color burst, going in and out of commercials and some of the stuff that happened at the time. We do have a skew control, and if you're not familiar with the concept of skew, sometimes in old tapes you see the top, if you see my finger here, of the shot bending. The whole picture just goes askew, skew. So this is to straighten it back out. But in my experience, it seems to function on here, but it just isn't very effective, I've noticed. Especially on stuff that I've recorded, it holds no sway whatsoever. It does a little bit on stuff that I have that has already been recorded. We got tracking, and everything is set at unity, if you will, at the 12 o'clock position, so you can go in either direction with it. As opposed to a lot of other VCRs, where you'd hold down a button. So yeah, we're truly analog here. Now, one of the quirky things here, there's a dehumidifier built into this, and it does work. But I had to hit up the service manual. I actually had to buy a service manual to try and figure out the mystery of the dehumidifier. So let me turn this on for a moment here. And the idea is, I guess they kind of had people that were having little tape recording parties in mind, people taking this to other people's homes and stuff, taking this on trips with them. And to try and speed up the acclimation of this thing to a new environment, you're supposed to turn on the rather noisy dehumidifier for 5 to 10 minutes. So I haven't tried to leave it on that long. I've just been, like when I first got this back in January, a nice ultra cold January in South Dakota, I just let the unit sit for 2 days. I didn't even try to use it. So down here we have TV and VTR, and it depends on how you've got it hooked up. Are you RF or composite? I'll show that when I turn this around. So that's really all that matters there. And it's also the dividing line between you recording on one channel and watching TV on another, if that happens to be what you're after. Otherwise, we got old school dials here. So I've got it set to channel 31 right now, KLAK. But yeah, if you're familiar with these, if it's 12 through 13 channels, 12 through 13 on the top, 14 through 83 on the bottom, although it's only labeled up to 82. And if you want UHF, you just set the top switch to the letter U and just go from there. This unit is missing the button for the automatic fine tuning, but I can still take the butt end of a pen or a small screwdriver and depress the switch within the machine. I just leave it on all the time. That's what you generally do with these things. Up on top, basic analog counter, and it's actually still set from the last tape I had in here. And otherwise, that's about it for the front. So let me take another cut here. I'll 180 the machine and we'll take a look at the back. Okay, here's the back of the unit, obviously. And for the time, it's pretty standard stuff. Now, of course, they're really mostly assuming that you're watching TV with rabbit ears or a rooftop antenna. And given when this was, mid-late 70s, everything is the good old screw terminals. So at the very least, you're going to be dealing with, as I call them, the devil's pitchforks. But of course, if you're going to be using something like that these days and want to convert it a little, you got to bust out the matching transformer. So that's exactly what I've done when I've needed it, at least. Now, I could be totally wrong about this. I can't find anything in the literature about this, but I believe this stray terminal on the VHF input side of things is an accommodation for cable TV. And there's also a little bracket here you can take off and kind of clamp down your cable. But I can't prove that. But you do have a switch here for 75 ohms or 300. Now, on the UHF side of things, you have the input, obviously, but you can also run to your TV from the UHF end of things if you so choose. But I think pretty much everybody did the VHF side of things. And speaking of which, it's going to be channel 3. As far as I know, these are all channel 3. And of course, if you've seen my video on my U-matic deck, I've done 2 of them actually. The more recent one is more in-depth, but you got these pop-out RF converters that are kind of like a bloated Atari cartridge. And you got a spot down in there to just pop it in there, kind of like an early video game cartridge. Otherwise, let's see here. We got a color lock screw adjustment down in there. So if the color goes wacky, and you just get in there with the screwdriver and tweak it a little, and it should be fine again. The color's been fine for me. The only issue I've had has been the playback of my own recordings, but I'll get into that. Otherwise, getting truly back on topic here, we for outputs, we can do composite. So if you had one of the earlier composite-ready TVs, there you go. Now, this never went beyond mono audio. Had this stuck around, I'd imagine they would have fudged stereo somehow out of it. But it just didn't happen. So for me, doing transfers, it means busting out the mono splitter and a coupler. I really need an all-male one of these things. It's kind of a mess when I do this. But at the very least, I still see videos on YouTube. People have transferred from tapes, and the audio is only in the left channel. A splitter is $6 at Guitar Center. It's not going to break the bank. Anyway, if you want to do composite input, they're really just assuming that you're going to use their special camera. And I did find one on Fleabay, but the seller wanted $175 for it, and I think another $75 for shipping, so that was a pass from me. But if you had it, we got a PL259 UHF input there. Now, of course, somebody like me, if I want to record, I'm going to lean more towards composite recording, but to do so in a little more contemporary way, slightly, it means we got to bust out the adapters again. And also the audio input on this thing is 1/4 inch, so you'll need either an adapter cable or a pop-on adapter. And then we got the, 2.5 millimeter jack for a remote pause. And I did test all this. I did hook up my RCA camera from this period to this, and you'll see the results of that. And of course, when you're doing recording, you got to remember to set either composite or RF. Otherwise, down in here is a sharpness adjustment. Now, I've just got it set at unity, if you will, the neutral position, and it looks about right for recordings of the period to me. I mean, if you've seen any recordings from the late 70s from a consumer VCR, they're always a little soft. So I could jack it up a little, but I don't wish to. I think I'd rather just keep it period appropriate, if you will. I can dink with it in post if I'm really desperate. Otherwise, what do we got here? We got, you don't have to give up an outlet. You got a spare. And if you've seen my videos on the U-matic, especially the one I did where it's the full rig with the tuner timer unit, if you're going to do the timer thing, it's the timer that gets plugged into the wall, and then the VCR gets plugged into the timer. So the VCR is slave to that, so to speak. Otherwise, that's about it. So let me take a break, get a drink of water, and we'll take a little look at one of the tapes, and we'll finally get to the documentary stuff. I already have a ton of footage of me dealing with these tapes. I spent some real quality time with these. So I'm only going to give you the basic gist of it here. Hopefully I'll fill you in the main documentary parts that deal with this. So I've already got this taken apart. I've got the screws out and yeah, I disobeyed the gods. Anyway, let me take the top off here. And what we're dealing with is kind of a descendant of two formats, one being the Europe-only Philips VCR format, video cassette recording, and right around the same time here in the States, Cartravision. And the thing that all three have in common is that the two reels are stacked on top of each other, which just kind of feels more like trying to avoid a lawsuit, maybe a Sony going after these companies for copying the U-matic, having two reels side by side, or a Betamax a little later on, that sort of thing. But what we've wound up with is almost the 8-track of video formats. Now this isn't a loop, it does have a normal beginning and ending, but it's 8-track-esque in the way that it winds around and the way it deals with things. So again, two reels. On the bottom, it's the supply reel. On the top, it's the take-up reel. We're right around the end of the tape, and the last 20 minutes of this thing are blank, so nothing's, getting potentially damaged here. But the basic idea is we're running out of the bottom around the core at the moment. As I mentioned in the first segment, when I slide that bar on the VCR, it removes the core, and it actually rather intelligently manages to wrap it around just so with the head. It's in a way, it's kind of brilliant. But at the same time, yeah, it feels like it's avoiding a lawsuit. So yeah, it winds around and then up to the top here. And otherwise, it's a basic braking system like you'd see in Betamax or VHS or whatever. So I can kind of pull it back there. It works in tandem with the teeth that run all around both reels. And otherwise, getting back to the 8-track thing, 8-track tends to have foam or some sort of cushioning in it. Well, these had up to 4 foam pieces in them, and they've pretty much all rotted at this point. All the ones I've got rotted, so I took them off, and I thought that I would need to replace it. I figured maybe it does need that bit of cushioning, so I cut down some 8-track foam pieces, and I played it, and it was fine, but I decided to try one without it, and it played just the same. So I just took the foam back out, and yeah, just one less thing to worry about. Otherwise, I think it's time for the big nasty pseudo-documentary. This is footage shot over 10 days. I spent a lot of time with this one. Let's get to it. I'm just kind of documenting this. I don't know if this will ever get used again, but this is going to be the first proper test, certainly the first stab at doing transfers. So the setup is my usual analog transfer setup for video. In this case, we're starting with the Great Time Machine to my Hotronic AP41, and I actually got another one of these not too long ago, but it needs recapped, and I should probably find somebody to do that. If you've ever seen me with a soldering iron, it's not pretty. Anyway, that's hopefully good to go. And then we've got my old Sony Digital 8 handy cam, if I can force the camera to focus. Yeah, kind of, sort of. And then lastly, onto the laptop. So with that, I'm actually going to start. I better plug in first. That wouldn't hurt. There we go. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started so I don't forget So we are indeed running. Hopefully I have everything set up. The RF modulator in the back says 3 on it, so it's presumably channel 3 analog. And yeah, let's shoot for the best here. There we go. All right, I have no reason to believe that this tape is bad, but you know what? I may actually just hold off on this for now, just to take it apart, just to make sure. So actually, I think I will do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop. And I've got it open, and in case I didn't mention it, this is the tape that came with the deck, and I actually have the man himself, his little tutorial video, just kind of for that extra hand if I need it. It looks like this tape has not been in, so to speak. Nobody's dug into it. There are pieces of foam that are still intact. In the name of testing, I may or may not take them out. They're definitely not in great shape, but at the same time, they're not horrible. I'm really just checking this for mold and hoping beyond hope that that doesn't look like mold. That looks like just dust. Yeah, it's on the outer part, so I may just quick blow that off. But so far, so good. I'm kind of on the fence about taking the foam out. I think I'll just forego that this time, see if it gives me any trouble, and just go from there. Okay, good news and bad news. Good news, mold-free, just a little dust. Unfortunately, just a quick overshot of my canned air here hit one of the foam pads, and you can see it just took a chunk right out of it. So even though I didn't really want to, this is not where I wanted to go with this. This is not how I wanted to get the party started. I guess I am now officially obligated to get the foam out. So I'll take a cut here since I am not equipped for any big thing. This was just meant to be totally informal. Yeah, I'll take a cut and get back to you and hope that I don't do anything too stupid. Well, I'm going to have to eat my words. I did get the foam out. That's all taken care of, but I don't know if my camera's going to read it too well. But right in the center of the shot, if I can get my finger in there in tandem, right at the edge of my fingernail. I know the focus is really dodgy, but there is indeed just a touch of mold in there. Now, this is absolutely against normal protocol for me, but I am not going to give this a total cleaning. I just don't think it's quite necessary. I'll give the machine a thorough cleaning when I'm done here. Well, that was fun putting this back together, but I think I've got it. Everything felt natural, so to speak, when I put it back together. So, I'm not going to play straight away. I'm going to see if there's any excess to rewind, so we'll put this sucker into gear. We'll see if we have any excess to rewind. Doesn't look like it. All right, let's see if I totally screwed this up or not. We're rolling. Yeah, there's stuff on screen. I don't seem to have picked the right channel, though. All right, it was just a stupid brain fart on my part. I just forgot to put this into VTR mode. This is, I'm sure I mentioned it, this is just coax, RF, going into the TV. The good signal, the composite signal, yeah, you already know the drill. Anyway, you missed some absolutely warble-tastic, wow and flutter-tastic audio at the opening music. I guess if I do use this, I'll put it in there. The playback is... it's about the best I've done tracking-wise. I have a feeling this is one of those deals where everybody's machine is going to react very differently, and you having the tracking at Unity, which I clearly don't, it would be at the 12 o'clock position. Yeah, I have a feeling that only really works on stuff you actually recorded on the machine. So anyway, I've never actually watched, obviously, anything on Great Time Machine per se, certainly in person. So I normally don't transfer anything except ephemeral stuff, excuse me. But I might this time just to have it, see if we hit any commercials. But I'd be willing to bet very heavily this is like an HBO-ism. But even then, will we have any ephemera? Who knows? But yeah, this is just a good little test, and it's going to need a cleaning afterward, and I think that might have to wait till tomorrow. It's getting a little late already, and I've got a 2-hour movie ahead of me here. Well, I do have one update to give. Let me turn the volume down. This was recorded off of ABC. That's the good news. The bad news is it was a member of the Commercial Cutter Society. So I'll check back in if anything comes up. But this could be on the way to becoming a sacrificial tape, possibly something to record over or something like that. The bumper, the partial bumper that I've seen so far for the ABC Friday Night Movie is common as is on YouTube several times over and in better quality. So yeah, there's an update for you. Well, I'm going to have to eat my words again. We were commercial cutting, we're like a third of the way into the movie now, and suddenly magically we got commercials and we just cut back to the movie. Of course. So, and I'm on the fence about recording over this one. We'll see what develops. Alright, let me try and bring everyone up to speed here. There's about another 20 potential minutes on the tape. Some commercials, just enough to keep it from being a candidate for reuse. So, yeah, I guess I'll eventually post whatever fragments are here. I think there was only about half of a commercial break intact. Otherwise, it's kind of just bits and pieces. Okay, so we got nothing at the moment. Guess I'll stop the recording. I have a feeling there's probably nothing else on here, but I'll just kind of stick it out just to see what happens. It does feel like it's trying to clog on me a little, I noticed. So yeah, it's going to be one of those deals where I'm cleaning it after every tape. And as I mentioned earlier, with the little bits of mold, I definitely need to clean it. But it will not be tonight. It's getting truly late now. Anyway, what I do know about this particular recording, it was recorded off of KOMO in Seattle. It dates to no later than the summer of 1979. But what is there is just frustratingly sparse. But yeah, there's just enough to keep this out of the candidate reuse pile. So I'm going to just wait this out. If I happen to see anything else, which I really don't think I'm going to, I'll pop back in. But that's going to be it for tape number 1, round 1. I am not going to rewind this. I'm going to just treat this as... I don't know how you want to put it. This is going to have to be a truly archival thing. This is not something I ever really want to casually watch a movie on. But yeah, I'll rewind them when I'm done with this project. At least that's the current plan.
of us are going to do is keep the law for the folks that pay us our salaries. I ain't about to use this office to get vengeance.
How you going to do that, Buke? That's my car. Hey!
1 ounce of Total gives you 100% of the recommended daily allowance of all these important vitamins and iron.
Yeah.
I'll pour this leading natural cereal. Stop me when you think the vitamin value equals Totals.
Okay. No.
Not yet.
Stop.
Nope.
This is unreal.
It takes at least 16 ounces of any of the leading natural cereals to equal the vitamins in 1 ounce.
Just a little note here, the front panel here, I forget the goofy name that the manual gave it, something is holding it back on the far right end of it, and I'm not able to get it off, but I was able to loosen 4 screws, so 2 along a sliding sort of deal, and then the 2 in the circuit board for me to, if I can just get this far enough back, grab and, well, after all that, I finally got this thing apart enough to clean, so I'm gonna remove the head, and from what I understand, it's supposed to be very simple. It's supposed to be a clockwise turn off, reverse thread screw, and then I can just pop the whole thing off with my fingers and just clean it. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do my usual, not chamois, I've kind of given up on that, but lens cleaning cloth, soft lens cleaning cloth. So yeah. It's not going to show up on camera, but I think this drum has got a fair amount of wear to it. Yeah, I don't think the camera's going to pick it up, but there are parallel scratches all around it from possibly several years worth of tape running through it. But I think we're okay. I didn't really get much of any junk, so now it's going to be a game of cleaning all the rollers and all that good stuff. I got the pinch roller kind of right at the edge of the shot here. This could be interesting. Well, this has been a massively frustrating day number 2 of this project. I guess my basic goal now should be to get a tape transferred every day. It took me literally almost all day to get this open enough to clean. Lots of parts were getting stuck, and I think I might have run into some kind of homebrew fix. Something seemed to be glued that shouldn't have been. Something happened somewhere. Anyway, so I've got it just kind of partially put back together, largely so I can easily take it apart and clean it. So the only thing holding the front plate on are the 4 screws underneath, and those are only loosely in there, and I'll have to pop off the knobs. But yeah, I might need tracking control and that sort of thing if I'm working on this, transferring tapes. So yeah, and then I can take the top off kind of at will. But also, I probably mentioned it earlier, it may or may not get used, but you should be able to fold back that circuit board there. But I found that you have to loosen a few screws first. And so I did that, and hopefully it's in a position now where I can fairly easily clean it. And on that note, in the name of keeping things nice, if you will, a while back, I had a dust cover made. Now I do have the original, really short one for this, but yeah, this is full coverage, and this is intentionally oversized by like 4 inches, so I can not only tuck it underneath all 4 sides, but it can accommodate the external timer unit. So yeah, that's how it's gonna look for the time being. Anyway, I got a batch of 3 tapes a while back, and I decided to pop open each one to take a look. And as it turned out, one was very moldy. Like, moldy to the point that even though I'm breaking my own rules quite a bit with this project, I am not comfortable with putting that one in. It is that bad. So I have to figure out how to clean it, and taking these tapes apart is no fun, especially if you have to re-string, if you will, the tape. The other 2 in the lot had a little mold, but I was able to actually kind of clean them off just on my own. So those are all done. I did preemptively clean the shell and stuck a bunch of silica gel packets in here. So this is isolated and theoretically shouldn't get any worse. So yeah, that's going to just kind of go off into its own little world for now. This will be done some other time. This is tonight's tape. It is now 8:30 p.m. as of my shooting this. None of the 3 are marked at all. They're all 1-hour tapes. Thankfully it won't be the 2-hour slog that last night was. That last Walking Tall movie, that's a Budweiser kind of movie, as in you had to chug a lot of Budweiser to just come up with enough stuff to stretch out such a thin, overdone premise, because, that really should have only been 1 movie, not 3. Anyway, I'm rambling. Same setup as yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Everything should be good and warmed up by now. Plenty. Let's see if I can get like a soft eject out of this. I hate things that just spring. I had a bad experience with the top-loading Betamax. So anyway, let's see if I didn't screw anything up here. Let's see how well my cleaning job did. Okay, everything is hopefully happy. Oh, you can tell it's late and I'm tired, and yeah, your dumbass host forgot to do the most important part, take the inner core out of the tape. That's the whole point of this exercise with the slider. Yeah, and trying to do it slowly is, sometimes I can do it slowly, sometimes not. But I don't want to just, ram it like that, but I got no choice. It just kind of happened. Okay, let me turn this back on. Yeah, I'm so slick. All right. We have no movement. Well, here I go eating my own words again. We are now up to day number 3, and I was under the impression that I had somehow rebuilt, if you will, my tapes incorrectly. Nope. I looked at one, just, took the screws off and just checked it, made sure I threaded everything right. Everything was fine. So that tells me that there is some other issue that keeps causing this machine to lock up. And any virgin tapes I have, so to speak, play just fine. So there's something going on down there. So I went back online and to the same bank of videos that I've been hitting up for quite a while now. And the advice was to clean the idler tires and such down in there. Let's see here. I have 2 flashlights on me. We got the main one, which is attached to another one. These are all hard plastic, at least on this unit. And then we have 2 stacked. So if I were to turn this manually, it spins the bottom part of this function. It's all kind of weirdly stacked. So, and then we'll need to clean the part that you actually can see out in the open. So this is something that's not going to translate well to camera, but I guess I'll try and shoot the footage anyway. It's not like I have to use it. But yeah, the current plan is to clean out all those wheels. The advice was also to use heavily diluted alcohol, which good luck getting that in the shot. But I cut this down to equivalent to 25%. And I used distilled water to cut it down because the local water around here is just really hard. It has a lot of junk in it. So just in the name of hopefully not introducing anything else. But yeah, I don't know how well this will work on camera, but I'll give it a shot. Alright, this is one of those times where Benny Boy the Cynic is really taking over. But I cleaned it out the best I could. So we've got one of my formerly known working tapes. And we'll just see what we get. Now, if it fails again, I'll pop it in, I'll press play, and the tape will advance maybe about a quarter of a turn. And then just stop, and then the auto stop light, which is kind of out of the shot, comes on. So I hope I'm wrong. This is one of the times I really like being wrong. Do it nice and slowly, like we're supposed to, as much as you can. It's not as easy as it looks. Here we go. Yep, same old, same old. Well, I'll have to splice in pictures, but there's, in the lower part of the dual, I hate to call it idler wheel, but I guess that's kind of it. It's it's hard to describe. There's a break on it, but it seems to have old foam or something on it, and I don't want to take it off because it's going to be too harsh for the tape otherwise, but it leaves such a horrible trail of junk that I kind of have to do something. I don't think, I would hope it's not lubricant. As far as I know, these tapes aren't lubricated at all. I could be totally wrong about that, but this is just what I got trying to clean off the lower part of that reel enough to not even have the Q-tips turn a little black. So anyway, I'm going to do another test here, and I'm not really expecting any great success. I believe I've got everything set back up. We'll try again with the tape that's already been transferred. Of course, trying to do this with the front kind of off. There's some stuff, there's some wiring stuff that's attached, and it feels like it's going to take the circuit board with it if I try and detach from the board, so I'm just kind of stuck with a hanging front piece. Anyway, I'm not expecting any different results here. But if nothing else, we'll say I tried. So I'm expecting it to do the same old quarter turn and then just stop deal again. Yep. Oh. Yep, we got something. Now, it's not going to turn up on the television because it's a blank stretch of tape. It's in that 20 minutes after the movie, so nothing is potentially getting damaged here. But if I go stupidly tight on the one functioning item, there you go. So yeah, hey, it works again. It's everything about this is so counterintuitive. All right, well, after retesting the walking tall tape, things seem to be going again, so I guess I'm going to take a shot at another one. And to be on the safe side, it's one of the shorter ones, and it's one that I've had apart, and I know I threaded properly. I was able to check it against my other known good tapes. There doesn't seem to be any tension issue or anything like that in this. So we've got the usual setup, and Benny Boy shouldn't be keeping liquids on top of that thing. I'll move them once I get the transfer started, so yeah. Okay, I got the bracket back on there, with the guides, of course. All right, now... All right, we'll thread it up as best as I can. Okay, walking tall worked, so let's hope for the best here. We'll do play. Nope, right back to where we started from, of course. All right, just to show it off, I do have it running again, the walking tall tape once again. But I put the bracket back on, and I did it just kind of loosely, not even really finger tight. I could probably undo it with my fingernails if I tried hard enough. So I just wanted to show that we are indeed running again. But the uber cynic in me says the machine's going to find something it doesn't like with any other tape that I try and put in it. So we'll get this guy out. And through the magic of editing, we're running again. I feel like I don't have any great reason to, but why not? Due diligence. Okay, I'm going to hit play again. Boy, that doesn't sound good. It's always something, isn't it? Well, I guess there's no time like the present to discuss this. I've been kind of developing my own system of putting these things back together when I finish working on them. So this is a properly threaded tape. and it probably won't show too great on camera, but you're going between all the guides, around every corner outside, and then between the guides is kind of the basic rule of thumb. Otherwise, it's like an 8-track. It makes a little curl down into the guts of the tape, and then we got 2 stacked reels, which is absolutely not my favorite system of tape. I don't know why anybody ever did that. So anyway, if done properly, the spring should always be good and attached down in there. If not, you can use whatever adhesive you want, I suppose. I haven't felt a need to yet. And there's a door on a spring in here. So I have it taped back. Normally it would be in the position where my fingers are. So a sliding spring door like you see on some other videotape formats, I guess. Kind of like a much smaller version on VHS where you kind of pull back the flap at the end of the tape. So anyway, you do have to land this sucker just right. And there is indeed a ring down in there, which probably won't show up on camera, right at the tip of my finger where everything goes into. So yeah, if God help you if the tape gets rumpled or you have to cut stuff out. I usually don't recommend cutting videotape at all, but something like this, with this machine, it would just choke on it in a heartbeat if you tried to just pass the normal wrinkled tape like you normally would on a VHS or Betamax or U-matic or whatever. Whether or not I have much luck doing this on camera is anyone's guess. Now there is a sliding groove in here that you need to land this sucker in to boot, so I found it's easier just to tape it back. And it should be a relatively natural drop. Okay, it looks like my spring's in order. Nothing sounds bad. You can shake these things and it always sounds like there's stuff missing, but it'd be one louder, I guess, otherwise. So otherwise you got 5 screws, 1 in each corner, 1 in the center, standard stuff. So I'm gonna put this back together and we'll take another stab at this. Hopefully the VCR will accept it. It seemed to be on the road to doing so. So yeah, I'll take a cut here and pick back up when I'm ready to test again. Before I forget and before I start this up again, I do have the screws back in here. Friendly neighborhood reminder, take your tape back off and it should spring right back into place. Yep, beauty. Okay. Otherwise, it kind of should go without saying, but almost nobody ever discusses it. The first time you take apart any tape, it's going to be a little tougher. It's going to, you're going to hear that kind of healthy crack the first time. So all too often when you see these tutorial things on YouTube or wherever, they've had these open a couple of times already, if only to make it smoother, or they know what they're doing with that tape, or it's a sacrificial tape that they've had open several times. But if you ever have to do something like this, don't get discouraged. It just comes with the territory. You just have to work on it a little more. Well, I have managed to waste another day on this. Something done went wrong with the machine, but it seems to work now. I gave it yet another cleaning and suddenly magically it works again, even though it had barely been used, like 1 minute. So, I might be tempting fate. Every time I turn on the camera, something new seems to go wrong. But I have tried the walking tall tape twice now. I've tried another tape, just kind of off the record, if you will. And that one works too. So, I'll try this again, but I feel like I'm kind of tempting fate at this point. Okay. Here we go. So far, so good. But... Oh, football game. Oh, cool. Well, maybe not. No, there, he did something. Is that Suzanne Summers? Okay. In the words of Artie Johnson, very interesting. Well, I was hoping that this tape would kind of mellow out. Come on. But yeah, it's not squeaking, it's not hiccuping, I'm not hearing anything wrong, nothing sounds unhappy. But yeah, this sucker is just not mellowing out. I've tried all the... Come on, camera. I've tried all the different settings, you know, with the tracking and skew and all that. But I feel like I don't know my Suzanne Summers movies that well. Is this American Hot Wax, maybe? So, yeah, maybe it'll clear up. Who knows? But as it stands, we might have a bit of a nausea-inducing video on top of my wonderful camera work. Okay, little update here. I actually started over on this tape. I tried to give it a little run first, see if that stabilized it. No, and the football footage at the beginning is good and stable, so I think this is more a result of recording with a dirty head at the time. But we got commercials. They'll make you seasick, but they're there. The movie is called Zuma Beach, made-for-TV movie, 1978. I'm going to guess this is the original airing. Yeah, just unfortunately the quality, it's a little more stable on the camcorder after going through the TBC. But yeah, I think it's still going to be in Pucavision. Well, thoroughly unrelated to the video I was doing, but I know there's a lot of weather geeks around here, so yeah, we're supposed to be in for some not-so-great weather tonight, so seems kind of appropriate that I have, or, I don't know, ironic, something, the beach movie to contrast it.
This severe thunderstorm will be near Hayward, Alcester, and Ironton around 8:30 p.m. Hudson around 8:45 p.m. Other locations impacted by this severe thunderstorm include Chatsworth. A tornado watch remains in effect until 9 p.m. for northwestern Iowa and southeastern South Dakota. For your protection, move to an interior room on the lowest floor of a building. Repeating, a severe thunderstorm warning has been issued until 8:45 p.m. for the following counties in Iowa, Sioux and Plymouth, and the following counties in South Dakota, Lincoln and Union.
All right, a little update here. I actually gave up on this tape. Got down to the last few minutes. It seems to be only the second half of the movie, so I'm wondering if my other tape from this lot isn't the first half. It doesn't seem to have been well recorded in the first place. Just for a lark, I'm going to throw in Walking Tall one last time, you know, a known good tape, just to make sure. But yeah, it got down to the end here, and it just started acting funny and making noises, and the picture just went completely. So, not that I missed much. And I should note, the commercial break that you saw earlier was the only one. So it was another commercial cutting thing that somebody just missed that one. So I've got a 2-minute ad break with a rolling picture to show for my efforts here. All right, I've done 2 bits of due diligence here. I tried my known good tape, played perfectly. And I also went and reopened that tape I just transferred, and I'll splice in the picture I took. As it turns out, there was nothing wrong with the tape. That's just what it looks like when it comes to an end. I just stopped it like a hair too soon. So in that picture, you should see the point, the splice, a pretty wonky looking one at that, and then the end leader. So with that, since this is from the same batch of tapes, another 1-hour tape, I'm wondering if this isn't the first half of Zuma Beach. Okay, I think we're good. And play. Okay. Oh, hey, an episode of Barney Miller. Sweet. I love Barney Miller. YouTube might not take too kindly to me having it. Yeah. All right. Cool. We'll see if we have ads and stuff. Well, I got the first half of the theme song to Barney Miller, then it kicked to something completely different, but I'm going to guess that this is a New York tape, theoretically. So we'll find out what it is. This one's looking reasonably promising, and this is as clean as the tracking as I've played with it a bit here. Wonder Woman, yep. And the instant I turn the camera off, it just jumps all over. Oh, these tapes have something against me. Okay, am I watching somebody's colonoscopy or something now? Episode of Doctor Who? Who knows? Oh, it's a commercial. I won't turn it down. This is probably going to be the last update for tonight. I'm doing my darndest to just ride out this tape. It's been going on for about 45 to 50 minutes now. But it's just been static. So the first 3 minutes had kind of bits and pieces of an episode of Barney Miller on it, and then it just nothing. So, yeah, I think, save for those first few minutes, this may very well become my recording experiment tape when the time comes, if the time comes. I'm trying to stay optimistic. But I am, like I said, I'm trying to ride this out as best as I can, but I may have to abort early because, as I already mentioned, it's kind of a crappy weather night. So that's just kind of a loose location for me. That's not really accurate. But if I zoom out and I run the radar loop, if that backs in on us, that could be problematic. And it's thundering out there now, and it's getting to be a shorter time between lightning and thunder. So this is probably going to be, I've gotten in the habit in the last couple of years of when we have a night like this or day like this, I just unplug everything. I unplug all my surge protectors, and everything on it by turn, unplug the computer and all in case we have a power surge and all that, or if I need to move things around quickly. I'm just keeping the computer kind of on standby here, but I don't think there's going to be anything else. But yeah, if I can ride out the next 10 minutes or so, that'll be it. Otherwise, I'll have to just kind of quickly abort. This thing's going to need another cleaning. I can just kind of hear it at this point. I'm starting to pick up on that. So yeah, unless something heavy duty happens in the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to say this is going to be the last update for tonight.
Preston Post Road, Mamaroneck. Don't miss it.
The big sweep is underway in Brooklyn and all over town. It's our Big Apple Make It Shine.
New York, New York, a hell of a town. The Bronx is up.
T-shirts?
T-shirts?
Yeah, that's right, Sugar. We sell them to the big and portly guys. It's kind of a huge business.
For all those things, take out the sauce. The plop, plop, fizz, fizz, fast, fast.
Alka-Seltzer, oh, what a relief it is.
7 a.m., Jean cooks a complete breakfast in her Lipton Meal in One. The first microwave oven to cook 1, 2, 3 foods all at once.
Maybe I'll be patient for a while. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting off to an exceptionally late start tonight, and this may be the last night that I document any of this. I might settle into just transferring tapes after this. But when I'm doing this, it's graduation season, and I have two family members, two kids in the family that I'm attending to that this year, so that kind of ate most of my day today. And the time that I have been working, it's been just trying to disassemble each tape, make sure there's no mold in there, take out the rotting foam, that sort of stuff. And so I've done all that. I gave this another full cleaning. We'll see if I screwed anything up. I found that it's one of those deals where I can do the same thing the same way twice, but get a different result. So I don't get it. Anyway, ideally it's going to stay pretty brief tonight. Now, I should note that I think I've managed to round up at least one of every variation of tape, every length. And, of course, this format was in Japan 2 years or so before America, or a year and a half, something like that. And I do have 2 Japanese tapes. So, yeah, maybe we can get some Japanese TV, but I'm not feeling too optimistic. Actually, one of them looks like I may have found a official released tape, so not off-air, but something actually manufactured and purchased with stuff on it right out of the gate. But yeah, I'm rambling. Let's get down to business here. I feel like I'm sort of settling into a groove with this. Like, I found that this bracket here, I only want to tighten the screws just enough. I don't want to really tighten them, but enough so I could almost undo them by hand. Otherwise, there's too much tension, and I kind of had to artificially bend back these 2 prongs here to try and keep a lighter touch on it, because when it clamps down harder on the tape, on the cassette, it starts giving me trouble. So anyway, before I forget, we're running. Now this is not marked. Actually, most of the tapes that I've picked up are not marked. Well, it wouldn't be a day without a screw-up of some sort on my part, and I totally forgot that about half the tapes are not rewound, this being one of them. So the more tape is finished, you can see it come out to the number line. If it were a 120-minute tape, you'd have 30, 60, 90 written on the glass, the plastic, whatever that stuff is. Plastic, I don't know. So, yeah, it's going to be take 2 here. Play. Oh, something. There's a very bad reception. Oh, wait. A commercial for Mountain Dew for like a split second. This could be interesting. It may have somebody's recording experiments on it. Once again, I should note that I did my preliminary test with a known good tape, so that things are working. I got an update for you here. It wouldn't be archived without a visit from the Evil D Company. You know who I'm talking about. And if not that, pornography. Haven't hit that one quite yet, but hey, I still got like 2/3 of my tapes to go through. But it seems to be coverage of a parade. Something like that. It just kind of threw me into the middle of it.
Give me the sunshine, give me a dew.
Where every day is a holiday and kids have nothing to do but play. Hi diddly do.
Really cynical people would complain that, for heaven's sake, even the garbage cans in Disneyland are clean. That Walt Disney had no clear appreciation of life the way it really is. Well, he knew about life the way it is, and he wasn't much interested in it. What he was interested in is life the way it was.
Returned to the United States this week after 14 years in Vietnam. That report next. Live in North Vietnam in 1967 was finally laid to rest today in his own country. Dodge, born and raised in Olympia, Washington, was 31 years old when his plane was shot down over North Vietnam on May 17, 1967. More than 14 years later, the Vietnamese returned his body to the United States.
All right, well, I am up to day number 6 of this transfer project. Hopefully today will be it. But I've got 3 tapes left to do. My 2 Japanese tapes and 1 American tape. But the American tape is the really badly moldy one that I just refuse to put in my machine. And even though I've been far more lenient on this project about mold, this much I fear is just going to seize up the machine. It could very well be stuck together. It's still a risk I'm going to have to take no matter what I do. So initially, I mean, this is still half-inch tape, and I do have ways of cleaning half-inch tape. But in this configuration, in this kind of 8-track configuration, I really don't want to take any of this apart. And then I'd have to manually wind all this onto a smaller core, if you will, to clean. So, or try and fit it into a VHS tape or something. It's not worth it. So what I'm going to try and do here is I've got a little tool that's really designed for changing belts, you know, when they're deep down in a machine. So I'm going to take the flat end and I'm going to cover it in very alcohol-soaked paper towel. I can kind of just fudge the reels here just enough upward that I hope I can fit it in there and just kill whatever I can and hopefully get this to something approaching usable. I think tape will get scratched in this case, but that's just going to be a tracking problem. I have no idea what's on this. It's not marked. It could be a total dud. I could be putting in a lot of effort onto a blank tape. But yeah, this has just kind of become my sacrificial tape. I just have not been able to think of anything, you know, real practical. So what I'm going to do here is I've already got the top reel out. It's doing its usual loop thing. I'll take this bottom reel out, set it out, so the tape will just be going around. It'll still be on that core, and that's really all I can think of. For what it's worth, I've already I've taken out the old foam in the shell. I've already wiped things down with alcohol just externally. Yeah, so I guess I'll try and keep the camera on and see what happens. But again, this could just be a complete effort and futility. Well, for me to say this is imprecise would be a colossal understatement. But I've done the best I could. I've gotten as deep into both sides of the reel as I can. And I failed to mention earlier that I did indeed entertain the notion of playing this just at regular speed, obviously, with the top removed from the tape and trying to clean it as it, you know, just plays normally. But I don't think I would be able to get the clearance in there. And of course, there's a certain amount of tension, I guess you could say, certainly a certain amount of stability you need for this to play in the machine. And that's part of why you've got all that stuff on the top side you got the machine, the tape, and then the brackets that hold everything in. So I'd have to try and stabilize this well enough for playback so it doesn't jump the rails. So yeah, everything I do is just horribly imprecise. As I've mentioned a few times now, I'm breaking my own rules by even playing this, but I'm hoping I'm good enough to take a shot at this. Now, if it starts squealing at me or anything, it's, abort mission. So anyway, I guess I'll put this sucker back together and I'll pop it in and we'll see if it plays nice. But like I said, first sign of squeaking or seizing, I'm just hitting stop. Well, I decided to do my 2 Japanese tapes first. So yeah, I saved the best for last. But I guess it was appropriate. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that I feared both of my Japanese tapes would be pornographic. And that they appeared to be officially released, and I was right on both fronts. So yeah, I got stuck watching some sort of sampler tape, and one about a bunch of things, but most notably about a woman who gets turned on by watching horses procreate. I wish that were a joke. So yeah, I guess it's appropriate that our cruddy, moldy tape get played after something that dirty. Yeah, I wouldn't be lucky enough to get some, vintage Japanese television or something. So I guess it's time to do this. And as I have mentioned before, if this starts squealing or just acting weird, I'm gonna abort mission. And let me turn the tracking was weird on the last tape. So I put it back at Unity. And I should note one of the tapes had gone sticky. It clogged the heads twice on me within about 10 minutes. So I never did get through the sampler tape that I mentioned, which is just as well. But yeah, maybe I'll bake it, maybe I won't. And even if I do, I'll probably never transfer it because I see enough of that stuff collecting tapes. Anyway, we're running. We should be all good and threaded up and ready to go. And watch, this will be blank or it'll be something really common with the commercials cut out and I went through. It took me a grand total of about 3 hours to work on that, unfortunately. We've got kind of a mess. Something slightly Disney-ish. Let me get back. It's just as well. I'll check back in if it's anything noteworthy.
Politician that you can trust. Let's sweep out City Hall's old dust. If you want clean government,
Well, if you would rather curse the darkness than light one little candle, of course, that's up to you.
They've stripped us right down to the bone.
Just a quick test. The audio is probably going to be blown out and buzzy and hummy and everything. This is the only camera I've got. This is the BW003 RCA, which I don't have any great way of obviously showing it off when I'm using it. Okay, recording test number 2. Now, this time around to try and cut down on some of the excess noise, but alas, not the ground hum, I added just a cheapy little mixer in line. Okay, hopefully the final test. Hopefully this is what makes the episode. So, I bumped up the volume. I kind of undershot it on the crappy little Behringer mixer. Hopefully I'm audible over all the hum. The uber cynic in me is saying bad filter capacitor, or at least the stereotypical YouTuber. So we will do another stab at record pause, and I will show that off one more time. Right here, running to the machine. Okay, through the magic of pausing, I will magically just jump to a completely another spot in the room, another object, another thing. Hey, it's magic. The wonders of modern technology. Alright, I think that's going to be about the extent of camera testing. RCA BW003, because I don't have a direct, if you will, Quasar model, a actual Quasar brand one meant for the beast. Say goodnight, Gracie. Well, this is a true disappointment. I'm up to day number, 9 now. I've been working on this way too long. I was going to do the big test with the timer, you know, the whole notion of the Quasar Great Time Machine. And, yeah, this thing is not only dead, it literally just crumbled on me, just taking the screws out of the back. So I plugged this in, and it lights up, but that's it. I can set the knobs any way I want, and just nothing moves, nothing happens. I can have the switch up and down, I can run it through the VCR, I can do anything, and just nothing. So I figured, well, this can't be too much. I mean, this is just effectively a lamp timer, like you go to the hardware store and buy for $6-7 now. So I took it apart, and there's no capacitors or anything that you would think of with, you know, electronics repair in there. And I knew that, and I figured it's probably just a stuck gear or something. I just need to lube it a little something. And no, everything is just completely disconnected and dead. I can't really explain it all that well, and I can't even take it out all that well. But we got the switches for turning the timer on and off and so on, and here's more of the broken pieces. And yeah, when I get down into the gears, this is the main one to adjust the clock, you know, what time it currently is. And it's just off, and it doesn't connect. Nothing is communicating, and it's all mechanical. But yeah, something happened to this. And I should note, this much was not my doing. The side was cracked, so I think this took a nasty tumble at some point and it destroyed it. So yeah, I can't even really use this as a showpiece now. And sure enough, at the moment, there are no more of these things on Fleabay at any price. I was going to try and quick order another one, and yeah, that just ain't happening. So, yeah, that sucks. I'm going to make my big Quasar Great Time Machine episodes with no time machine part to go with it. So, yeah, I guess that'll have to become a Ben's junk somewhere down the line if I can ever find another one of these and that actually survives the trip. Before I forget, on a related rant to this, and yes, I will try and reassemble this, I did do a broadcast test, so I could do a, truly off-air recording with the Quasar, and I'm sticking by my comment the other day about maybe a bad filter capacitor or something's screwing with the, I think it's a pilot tone, some sort of thing to trigger the color. We're really on the upper end of my knowledge of this stuff here. But I am only getting recordings in black and white, and no, I'm not accidentally leaving it set to black and white or anything. I'm getting good color coming in when I do a record test, checking levels and everything. But when I play back, it's just black and white with the occasional, if I'm lucky, flash of color. So the only footage that got done today was probably about 30 seconds of my own airing of my go-to color public domain movie, Ega. And we're up to day number 10 of this. Now, when I was ranting last night, more accurately, about the timer for the Quasar is really just a lamp timer when you think about it. Well, why not? Let's just use a normal old $5 lamp timer. These were available back in the 70s too. We'll see if I can record using that. Okay, I've got everything set up. I've got the timer just in the bottom left of the shot. It's a little obscured, but the record and play buttons are indeed depressed. Very, very depressed. Everything's set up, ready to go. I have the timer set for 3 o'clock, which is hopefully in the next 5 to 10 minutes here. And we are doing the off-air thing, just to show you that this is real. Channel 3. Ega again.
I'll take you up there. My dune buggy's all ready to go. Okay. Yes, I just gave it the works.
So now it's just an issue of waiting and hoping I set the timer correctly. All right, I don't think I gave myself enough of a running start the first time around, so I've given it another shot. It's going to be so-called 4 o'clock now. The shortest increment of time I can do is 15 minutes on that timer. And I should note, in the name of trying to get color back into my recordings, I have tried to clean out the terminals before. I gave them another shot. I reseated things where, it could be done. And I don't know if it's going to help any, but you never know. So this time around, I gave myself about a 15-minute running start. So I'm going to shut the camera off for a bit and then turn it back on when I think I'm getting closer to the timer. Well, well, well. There we are. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to sacrifice a quarter of this tape to do this experiment, but we'll give it our due diligence, make sure it shuts off in 15 minutes. And if it seems a little dark, I forgot to mention it, it's because the studio lighting is off because it interferes with the signal. Well, I had a whole setup ready here, and stupid Benny tried to move the surge protector, and it was enough to trip it. And yeah, it kind of prematurely ended my recording. I only got about 6 minutes out of the intended 15, but I suppose that's enough for proof of concept, right? So I guess I'll have to transfer the footage I've got, and I'm sure it'll still be in black and white. And yeah, that's about as close to, great time machine as I think we're going to get with this one for now.
Roxy. Better watch him with that shaving balm.
Roxy!
Starsky and Hutch tomorrow night.